The Galactic Empire had ruled the known galaxy for more than 3,000 years. Its banners flew over thousands of worlds, its fleets controlled every major trade route, and its leaders believed there was nothing left in the universe that could surprise them. Every star system had been mapped, every known species catalogued, and every dangerous threat either destroyed or absorbed into the Empire. At least that was what everyone believed. Deep on the frontier of Imperial space, beyond the crowded shipping lanes and wealthy core worlds, lay a quiet region known as Varney's Reach. It was a lonely area filled with dead stars, abandoned stations, and old mysteries that most citizens had forgotten. Few ships traveled there, and even fewer stayed long. On a routine patrol near a restricted star system, Commander Jiho Park sat inside the bridge of the Imperial scout cruiser Iron Wing. His mission was simple: monitor the sector and report any unusual activity. Most patrols ended in boredom. Pirates rarely ventured so close to Imperial military zones, and there had been no major incidents in years. Jiho expected another quiet shift. Instead, alarms suddenly flashed across every screen on the bridge. Officers immediately turned toward their stations as confused voices filled the room. Unknown vessel detected, one operator reported. Jiho frowned and stepped closer to the central display. A single symbol blinked on the screen near the edge of the restricted system. It showed one ship. Just one. That alone was unusual. The area was supposed to be empty. Identify it, Jiho ordered. Several seconds passed. Then the operator looked up with a puzzled expression. No match found, Commander. Jiho narrowed his eyes. Run the database again. The operator obeyed, searching through military records, civilian registrations, ancient archives, and classified ship catalogs. The result remained the same. No match found. The bridge grew silent. Such a thing was almost impossible. Every known vessel design in the galaxy existed somewhere in Imperial records. Yet the strange ship appeared to belong to no one. Jiho ordered the cruiser to move closer. As the distance narrowed, the sensors collected more data. The vessel was enormous compared to ordinary warships. Its surface was smooth and dark, almost blending into the blackness of space. There were no visible markings, no nation symbols, and no identification signals. It simply floated near the distant star as if it had been waiting there for centuries. Send a communication request, Jiho said. The transmission officer nodded and broadcast the standard Imperial greeting. No response came. Minutes passed. Still nothing. The unknown ship remained motionless. Jiho felt a growing sense of unease. Something about the vessel felt wrong. It was not damaged, stranded, or hiding. It seemed calm, patient, watching. He immediately sent a detailed report to sector headquarters. Several hours later, the report reached Admiral Hanul Kong, commander of Imperial forces in the region. Hanul was a respected officer with decades of experience. He had fought pirates, rebels, and alien coalitions, but even he had never seen a report like this. He personally reviewed the sensor recordings and ordered every available archive to search for a match. Teams of historians, analysts, and artificial intelligence systems worked continuously. They searched records stretching back thousands of years. The answer never changed. There was no record. The word spread through military headquarters like a disease. No record. No origin. No identification. No explanation. By the next day, concern had become alarm. Scientists began studying the ship's energy readings. The results only made matters worse. The vessel possessed power levels far beyond anything the Empire had ever recorded. Its reactors produced energy that should have been impossible according to accepted physics. Several experts claimed the sensor data had to be incorrect. Others argued the readings were accurate but beyond current understanding. Neither answer was comforting. Soon, the information reached the imperial capital itself. Inside the vast government complex, senior officials gathered around a holographic image of the mysterious ship. Among them was Minister Yuna Kim, one of the Empire's most influential leaders. She carefully studied the rotating image while advisors argued around her. Some believed it was an advanced experimental vessel from a hidden civilization. Others suggested it might be ancient alien technology from a forgotten age. A few even whispered that it could be a trap. Yuna listened quietly before asking a simple question. Has the ship shown any hostile actions? The answer was no. It had not moved. It had not fired weapons. It had not transmitted threats. It simply existed. Yet somehow that fact felt even more disturbing. Meanwhile, near Varney's Reach, Commander Jiho continued observing the vessel from a safe distance. Every hour brought new mysteries. The ship appeared inactive, but subtle energy waves occasionally pulsed from its hull. Instruments struggled to analyze them. Some systems malfunctioned whenever the waves appeared. One engineer described the experience as if the ship were bending reality around itself. On the third day, something finally changed. Without warning, every sensor aboard the Iron Wing registered a massive surge of power. The unknown vessel slowly activated. Dark sections of its hull illuminated with faint silver light. The surrounding space seemed to ripple. Crew members stared at the displays in disbelief. Then the communication console activated by itself. An incoming signal appeared on every screen. "We're receiving a transmission," an officer shouted. Jiho immediately ordered the signal opened. The bridge fell silent. For a moment there was only static. Then a calm voice spoke. It belonged to a woman. Her tone was steady and confident. "This message is intended for the Galactic Empire." Every person on the bridge listened carefully. The voice continued. "You have entered a restricted observation zone. Further military approach is not recommended." Jiho exchanged nervous glances with his officers. The speaker sounded completely unconcerned. There was no fear, no hesitation, and no sign of weakness. It was the voice of someone giving a simple fact. Nothing more. Then came the words that shocked the entire empire. "This vessel belongs to humanity." Silence filled the bridge. Humanity. The name meant nothing to most people. The databases contained almost no information about such a species. Jiho immediately requested clarification. "Identify your government and world of origin." Several seconds passed before the response arrived. "That information is not relevant at this time." The transmission ended. Across Imperial space, confusion exploded. Analysts rushed to investigate the mysterious name. Historians searched ancient records. Linguists examined forgotten documents. Finally, a few scattered references emerged from archives so old that most people had never heard of them. Humanity had existed thousands of years ago. Then the records simply stopped. There were no details about their fate. No information about their worlds. Only fragments remained, as if history itself had erased them. The discovery created even greater concern. If humans had disappeared long ago, how had they returned with technology far beyond anything the Empire possessed? The answer remained unknown. Determined to establish control of the situation, Admiral Hanul requested military authorization. The Empire could not allow an unidentified superpower to appear inside its territory without explanation. Permission was quickly granted. A powerful battle group was assembled near Varney's Reach. More than 200 warships gathered under the command of Admiral Dae Hyun Lee, one of the Empire's most celebrated fleet commanders. Massive cruisers, destroyers, and carriers filled the sector. Their combined firepower could conquer entire star systems. Citizens across the Empire watched news reports showing the deployment. Many felt reassured. Whatever this mysterious vessel was, surely one ship could not challenge an entire battle fleet. Yet inside military headquarters, confidence was fading. Too many questions remained unanswered. Too many experts had failed to explain what they were seeing. As the fleet prepared to depart, Minister Yuna stood before a large observation window overlooking the capital. Something about the situation troubled her deeply. The unknown vessel had made no threats. It had not attacked anyone. Yet every instinct told her that the Empire was walking toward something dangerous. Far away in the darkness of Varney's Reach, the lone human warship remained motionless. It watched the approaching Imperial fleet through sensors far beyond their understanding. Deep within the vessel, its crew calmly observed the incoming armada. Among them sat Captain Hannah Choi, a quiet woman with years of experience. She studied the fleet formations on her display and sighed softly. "They still don't understand," she said. Around her, the human officers exchanged knowing looks. Outside the ship, thousands of stars burned silently in the darkness as the greatest military force in the region moved closer. The first confrontation between humanity and the Galactic Empire was about to begin. Admiral Dae-hyun Lee stood on the command deck of the Imperial flagship Resolute as hundreds of warships advanced through the darkness of Varney's Reach. The massive battle group moved in perfect formation, filling space with enough firepower to destroy entire planetary systems. Behind the flagship traveled cruisers, carriers, destroyers, and support vessels, all carrying experienced crews who believed they were about to force a mysterious intruder into submission. News of the deployment had spread throughout the Galactic Empire, and many citizens watched with confidence. After all, this was not a war. It was simply an investigation. One strange ship could never stand against the Empire's military strength. Yet Dae-hyun could not completely ignore the uneasy feeling growing inside him. The reports about the human vessel made little sense. Every expert who studied the ship had failed to explain its technology. Every database search ended with the same answer. No record existed. As the fleet entered sensor range, the mysterious warship appeared on every display. It remained exactly where it had been for days, motionless and silent near the distant star. The dark vessel looked almost insignificant compared to the enormous Imperial armada surrounding it. Some officers even laughed quietly when they saw it. Commander Sun Park, one of Dae-hyun's senior officers, shook his head and smiled. "All this for one ship," he said. "This may be the easiest mission in Imperial history." Several officers agreed. Dae-hyun remained silent. Something about the vessel still troubled him. The ship did not look afraid. It did not attempt to flee. It showed no signs of preparing defenses. It simply waited. The battle group slowly formed a complete encirclement. Hundreds of targeting systems locked onto the human vessel from every direction. Escape was impossible. At least that was what Imperial commanders believed. Finally, Dae-hyun ordered a communication channel opened. His image was transmitted directly toward the unknown ship. "This is Admiral Dae-hyun Lee of the Galactic Empire," he announced firmly. "You are surrounded by Imperial military forces. Identify yourselves immediately and prepare to submit for inspection." For several moments there was no answer. Then a signal arrived. The face of Captain Hannah Choi appeared on the main screen. She looked calm, almost relaxed. Her dark uniform carried no visible rank markings familiar to the Empire. Behind her stood several human officers, all watching quietly. Dae-hyun studied her carefully. There was no fear in her eyes, no concern. It was as if the hundreds of warships surrounding her vessel did not matter at all. "I am Captain Hannah Choi," she replied. "You have entered a restricted observation zone. We advise you to withdraw." Some officers on the bridge laughed openly. Dae-hyun's expression hardened. "You are in Imperial territory," he replied. "Your vessel has no registration, no authorization, and no legal status within the Empire. Stand down immediately." Hannah remained calm. "Your assumptions are incorrect." Dae-hyun felt irritation growing. "This is your final warning." The human captain looked at him for several seconds. Then she spoke quietly. "Admiral, you do not understand the situation. Please withdraw your fleet." Before Dae-hyun could answer, the transmission ended. The bridge erupted with angry voices. Officers demanded immediate action. Some viewed the human response as an insult. Others believed it was a bluff intended to hide weakness. Eventually Dae-hyun made his decision. "Prepare boarding teams," he ordered. "Disable their engines and weapons if necessary. I want that ship secured." Across the fleet, orders spread rapidly. Attack formations activated. Weapon systems powered up. Hundreds of ships locked firing solutions onto the lone human vessel. Deep inside her command center, Hannah Choi watched the developments without surprise. Beside her stood First Officer Jun Kim. He glanced at the tactical display showing the enormous Imperial fleet. "They've committed," he said quietly. Hannah nodded. "As expected." Another officer named Mirasong looked concerned. "Permission to activate defensive protocols?" Hannah folded her hands behind her back. "Granted." Throughout the human ship, systems awakened. Energy flowed through technologies that had remained dormant for years. Yet from the outside, almost nothing changed. The vessel still appeared silent and inactive. Back aboard the Resolute, Daehyun gave the order to begin. Several Imperial destroyers moved closer, preparing electronic suppression attacks designed to disable enemy systems without causing serious damage. The first wave of signals raced toward the human ship. Nothing happened. The vessel continued drifting peacefully. Confused operators checked their readings. They launched a second attack. Again, nothing happened. The suppression signals simply vanished. It was as if the human ship had absorbed them. Then strange warnings appeared across multiple Imperial vessels. Sensor officers reported unusual gravitational fluctuations spreading from the human ship. Engineers detected energy patterns that defied known science. Communication systems began experiencing interference. Daehyun frowned. "Report." Commander Sun examined his display. "Minor system disruptions, Admiral. Nothing serious." Before he could continue, several screens suddenly flickered. Static filled communication channels. Navigation systems began displaying impossible readings. Nearby stars appeared to shift positions. Crew members stared in confusion. Then the first destroyer vanished. One moment it existed. The next moment it was gone. There was no explosion, no debris, no distress signal. It simply disappeared. Silence filled the bridge. Everyone stared at the empty space where the ship had been. "What happened?" Daehyun demanded. Nobody answered. They did not know. Moments later, a second ship vanished. Then a third. Panic began spreading across the fleet. Communication channels exploded with frightened reports. Some crews claimed space itself was changing around them. Others reported seeing impossible visual distortions. Instruments malfunctioned faster than technicians could repair them. The human vessel remained motionless at the center of the growing chaos. Daehyun immediately ordered all ships to open fire. Hundreds of weapons discharged simultaneously. Brilliant beams and missiles raced toward the target from every direction. The attack should have destroyed any known vessel many times over. Instead, something impossible happened. The weapons never reached the ship. Space around the vessel appeared to bend and twist. Energy beams curved away into darkness. Missiles vanished before impact. Every attack failed. Shock swept through the fleet. Officers stared at their screens in disbelief. Then the real destruction began. Massive cruisers suddenly lost power. Their reactors overloaded without warning. One exploded in a flash of light that illuminated the entire battlefield. Another warship tore itself apart as internal systems failed. Across the fleet, chaos erupted. Ships collided with each other. Navigation systems produced false coordinates. Artificial intelligence networks crashed. Entire squadrons disappeared from sensors. Some vessels emerged hundreds of kilometers from their original positions. Others never reappeared at all. Daehyun watched in horror as his carefully organized fleet collapsed into confusion. He had fought many battles, but nothing like this. The enemy was barely moving, yet his ships were being destroyed. "Retreat!" he shouted. "All vessels retreat immediately," but many ships could no longer receive orders. Communications had completely failed across large sections of the fleet. Captains struggled blindly as unknown forces overwhelmed their systems. The battlefield became a nightmare. Explosions lit the darkness. Distorted gravity fields twisted through space. Entire formations vanished. The once proud Imperial Armada was being dismantled before it could even understand what was happening. Inside the human ship, officers monitored the situation calmly. Mira Song reviewed casualty reports from the Imperial fleet. "They're collapsing faster than expected." Hannah Choi nodded slowly. Centuries of dependence on predictable physics, she said. They built their entire civilization around limitations we solved long ago. June Kim watched the battle display. Should we stop? Hannah considered the question. The demonstration has achieved its purpose. A few commands were entered into the control systems. Almost immediately, the strange distortions began fading. The gravitational anomalies disappeared. Space stabilized. The human vessel powered down its advanced systems. Silence returned to the battlefield. What remained of the Imperial fleet drifted through the darkness in shock. More than half the battle group had been destroyed, disabled, or lost. The survivors struggled to understand what they had witnessed. Dae-hyun stood motionless on the bridge of the damaged Resolute. Around him, exhausted officers stared at casualty reports. Entire squadrons were gone. Hundreds of ships had vanished or been destroyed. Yet the human vessel remained untouched. Not a single visible mark appeared on its hull. Then a new transmission arrived. Hannah Choi appeared once again on the main screen. Her expression remained calm. "Admiral Dae-hyun Lee," she said softly. "This was a warning. Humanity does not seek war. Withdraw your forces and inform your government that further aggression will be treated differently." Nobody spoke. The bridge remained silent. The scale of the disaster was beyond comprehension. Hannah studied the shocked faces for a moment before continuing. "You searched your records and found nothing. That should have been your first warning." The transmission ended. Across the battlefield, the lone human warship slowly turned away from the shattered remains of the Imperial fleet. As survivors began retreating toward Imperial space, fear spread faster than any message. Reports of the impossible battle raced toward the capital. The strongest military force in the region had been defeated by a single ship. Worse still, many officers now believed the terrifying truth. The vessel that had erased an entire battle fleet was not humanity's strongest weapon. It might not even be one of their important ships at all. The news of the disaster reached the Galactic Empire long before the surviving ships returned home. Emergency messages traveled across military networks carrying reports so unbelievable that many officials initially thought the data had been corrupted. Entire battle groups did not simply disappear. Hundreds of warships did not vanish because of one enemy vessel. Yet as more reports arrived, the terrible truth became impossible to deny. Admiral Dae-hyun Lee's fleet had been shattered. Thousands of trained personnel were missing. Advanced warships worth entire planetary budgets had been destroyed. Worst of all, nobody could fully explain how it had happened. Across the Empire, fear slowly replaced confidence. Citizens who had once laughed at the idea of a single unknown ship defeating Imperial forces now watched endless news discussions filled with worried experts. In the capital, emergency sessions continued day and night. Minister Yoon Kim sat inside the Imperial Security Council chamber with dozens of military leaders, scientists, and historians. Giant displays showed recordings from the battle. Again and again they watched Imperial weapons curve away from the human vessel. Again and again they saw ships disappear without explanation. Every replay raised more questions than answers. "We need to know who they are," Yoon said firmly. "Not what they can do. We already know that. We need to know where they came from." The council agreed. For the first time in centuries, the Empire ordered the opening of restricted archives that had remained sealed for thousands of years. Hidden beneath government facilities, protected by countless security systems, were records so old that many citizens did not even know they existed. Teams of researchers began searching through forgotten databases. Most expected to find nothing useful. Humanity appeared only rarely in known history. Yet, after days of investigation, strange discoveries began appearing. Professor Nari Song, a respected historian, found references buried deep inside damaged records dating back nearly 4,000 years. The information was incomplete, but one word appeared repeatedly: human. She immediately shared her findings with the council. As more files were uncovered, a forgotten picture slowly emerged. Long before the Galactic Empire existed, the galaxy had been divided among several powerful civilizations. During that era, humanity had been a young species expanding rapidly through nearby stars. Unlike other civilizations, humans advanced at an astonishing speed. New technologies appeared almost yearly. Their scientists challenged accepted theories. Their explorers traveled farther than expected. Their engineers built machines that frightened neighboring powers. According to the ancient records, many governments became concerned. Humanity was unpredictable, ambitious, curious. They ignored limitations that other species accepted without question. Several civilizations proposed alliances with them. Others viewed them as a growing threat. Then, according to the records, something happened. Large sections of the archives had been deliberately erased. Entire decades of information were missing. The remaining fragments suggested that a coalition of major powers had taken secret actions against humanity. Trade routes were blocked. Colonies were isolated. Political pressure increased. The exact details were unclear because somebody had worked very hard to remove the evidence. Yet one conclusion seemed unavoidable. Humanity had not vanished naturally. Somebody had pushed them away. Professor Nari presented her findings to the council. The room remained silent as she finished speaking. "You're suggesting that we created this problem?" one official asked nervously. Nari hesitated. "Not us directly. The Empire did not exist yet. But the civilizations that came before us may have feared human development." General Min Q frowned. "And instead of eliminating them, they isolated them?" Nari nodded. "That appears to be what happened." The realization was deeply disturbing. If humanity had survived beyond known space for thousands of years, then their technological advantage suddenly made sense. While the rest of the galaxy fought wars and competed for territory, humans may have continued advancing without interruption. Meanwhile, aboard the surviving flagship Resolute, Admiral Dae Hyun Lee finally returned to the capital. His appearance shocked many officials. The proud commander looked exhausted. Dark circles surrounded his eyes. His expression seemed years older than before. He personally attended the council meeting and described the battle in detail. No matter how many times he explained what happened, the story sounded impossible. "They weren't fighting us," Dae Hyun said quietly. "Not really." Several officials looked confused. "Explain," Yuna requested. Dae Hyun leaned forward. "If they wanted to destroy us, none of us would have survived. The entire engagement felt controlled, precise. They chose exactly how much damage to cause." The room became silent. Many had secretly reached the same conclusion. The human ship could have destroyed every vessel present. Instead, it had left survivors. It had delivered a warning. Nothing more. While debates continued inside the capital, another development was unfolding across the galaxy. The battle recordings had spread beyond imperial borders. Independent civilizations, merchant alliances, and distant governments all began investigating humanity for themselves. Strange reports soon emerged. Ancient legends from different worlds described mysterious visitors matching human descriptions. Forgotten myths spoke of travelers from distant stars who shared advanced knowledge before disappearing again. Several old civilizations possessed records mentioning human explorers. None of the stories were identical, but they all shared one detail. Humans had always been moving, learning, watching. As more evidence appeared, concern spread rapidly. Humanity had not simply survived. They had remained active throughout history, operating quietly beyond the attention of major powers. Back near Varney's Reach, Captain Hannah Choi continued her mission. The human vessel traveled slowly through deep space while receiving updates from distant human territories. Inside the command center, Officer Mirasong reviewed the growing political reactions. "The Empire is searching its archives," she reported. Hannah nodded. "Expected. Several neighboring governments are doing the same." Hannah looked at the star map displayed before her. Thousands of worlds filled the screen. "Good," she said. "The truth is finally resurfacing." June Kim stepped closer. "Do you think they'll listen?" Hannah considered the question carefully. "Some will. Others won't." She paused briefly. "History usually repeats itself before people learn from it." Far from the human vessel, Imperial intelligence agencies launched their largest investigation in centuries. Secret probes were sent beyond explored territory. Deep space listening stations searched for unusual signals. Long-range telescopes scanned distant regions for signs of human activity. The results terrified everyone involved. One probe detected evidence of massive structures orbiting a distant star. Another found energy signatures larger than entire planetary systems. Several observation stations reported brief sensor contacts with enormous fleets moving through unexplored regions. None of the evidence was complete, but the pattern was impossible to ignore. Humanity possessed resources on a scale far beyond previous estimates. The lone warship was not operating alone. Somewhere beyond known space existed an entire civilization. A civilization with technology capable of erasing battle fleets. As these discoveries accumulated, fear began spreading through the highest levels of government. Even military leaders who previously demanded retaliation now spoke cautiously. General Min Qiu privately admitted that another direct confrontation could end in disaster. The empire still possessed enormous strength, but strength meant little against an enemy whose capabilities remained unknown. Several days later, another transmission arrived from the human vessel. This time it was sent directly to the imperial capital. Millions of citizens watched as the message appeared on public networks. Captain Hannah Choi stood before the camera. Her expression remained calm and professional. "People of the Galactic Empire," she began. "Humanity has observed your civilization for a long time. We have no interest in conquest. We have no interest in your territory. But recent actions by your government have forced our attention." Across countless worlds, citizens listened carefully. Hannah continued, "The battle at Varney's Reach was a demonstration, not a war. Humanity prefers peace. However, we will defend ourselves when necessary." She paused before speaking again. "Your archives contain the truth. Continue searching." The message ended. Throughout the empire, reactions were immediate. Some citizens demanded diplomacy. Others called for military expansion. Many simply felt confused. Yet among historians and researchers, one thing became clear. Humanity wanted the galaxy to discover its own forgotten history. They were not hiding anymore. They were revealing themselves slowly, one piece at a time. Back inside the imperial capital, Minister Yuna Kim stared through the window of her office as thousands of city lights stretched toward the horizon. The discoveries of the past week had changed everything. The empire had always believed itself to be the center of civilization. Now that belief was crumbling. Somewhere beyond known space existed a human civilization older, larger, and more advanced than anyone had imagined. And if the reports were accurate, the lone warship that defeated an entire battle fleet was merely a scout assigned to observation duty. As Yuna considered that possibility, a new intelligence report arrived. Her eyes widened as she read the first lines. Long-range sensors had detected multiple unknown signatures approaching Imperial territory from deep space. There were not hundreds of ships. There were not thousands. The estimated number was still rising, and analysts were struggling to believe the figures appearing on their screens. For the first time since the crisis began, Yuna felt genuine fear. Humanity was no longer a mystery hidden in forgotten archives. Humanity was coming. The days that followed brought a level of tension the Galactic Empire had never experienced before. Every military station, every government office, and every major news network focused on the same question. What was humanity planning? The sensor reports continued arriving from the outer regions of known space, and each report seemed more frightening than the last. Massive unknown objects were being detected beyond the frontier. Some appeared larger than moons. Others moved in formations that stretched across entire star systems. Imperial analysts worked day and night to verify the data, hoping there was some mistake. There was none. The evidence was real. Humanity possessed fleets unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. In the capital, Minister Yuna Kim attended another emergency council meeting. The room was crowded with military commanders, scientists, and political leaders. Giant displays covered the walls, showing maps filled with red markers representing confirmed human activity. The number of markers increased every day. General Min-Kyu stood near the center of the room, studying the latest reports. His face looked more serious than ever. "We've confirmed at least 23 major human formations beyond the frontier," he said. "Each one contains enough energy output to rival entire Imperial fleets." Murmurs spread through the room. Even now, many leaders struggled to accept the scale of what they were facing. Admiral Dae Hyun-Lee remained silent for several moments before speaking. "The ship at Varney's Reach was never operating alone," he said. "We all know that now." Nobody argued. The evidence was overwhelming. Humanity was not represented by a single mysterious warship. That vessel had simply been the first one they had seen. Then another report arrived. An intelligence officer hurried into the chamber carrying a data tablet. His expression immediately caught everyone's attention. He handed the report to Yuna. Her eyes widened as she read it. Long-range observatories had detected dozens of enormous human vessels emerging from deep space. Their destination appeared to be the Imperial capital itself. The room fell silent. Several officials exchanged worried looks. One governor finally spoke. "Is this an invasion?" No one answered. Nobody knew. Across the empire, similar conversations were taking place. Citizens followed the news closely. Markets became unstable. Businesses delayed major projects. Families worried about the future. For thousands of years, the empire had represented security and stability. Now that confidence was fading. The unknown had arrived, and nobody knew what would happen next. Meanwhile, aboard the human vessel, Captain Hannah Choi reviewed the latest developments with her officers. Jun Kim stood beside her as they examined reports from other human task forces. "The Empire is preparing defensive positions around several core systems," he said. Hannah nodded. "Expected." Mira Song looked up from her console. "Many of their leaders still believe they can win a conventional war." Hannah allowed herself a small smile. "That belief will disappear soon enough." She turned toward the large observation window. Beyond it, endless stars stretched across the darkness. Somewhere among those stars, millions of people were afraid. She understood their fear. Humanity had spent thousands of years hidden from the rest of the galaxy. Now their sudden return looked threatening. But conquest was not the goal. Humanity had come for a different reason. A few days later, the first human fleet arrived near Imperial territory. Across military command centers, alarms sounded as sensors detected the incoming formation. What appeared on the displays left many officers speechless. The human ships were enormous. Some dwarfed entire Imperial stations. Others carried energy signatures so powerful that sensor systems struggled to measure them accurately. Yet despite their size, the fleets moved with incredible precision. There was no sign of panic or aggression. Every formation advanced calmly and deliberately. News broadcasts quickly showed images of the arrivals. Citizens watched in stunned silence as giant human vessels filled the screens. The scale was beyond anything they had imagined. One commentator compared the arrival to watching mountains drift through space. Another described it as witnessing a civilization from the future. At the Imperial capital, emergency military forces prepared for the worst. Defensive satellites activated. Planetary shields reached maximum strength. Thousands of warships assembled around important worlds. Yet many commanders privately admitted that these measures were mostly symbolic. After what happened at Varney's Reach, few believed conventional defenses could stop humanity if a war truly began. Then something unexpected happened. The human fleets stopped. Rather than advancing deeper into Imperial territory, they positioned themselves at carefully chosen locations near major systems and remained there. No attacks occurred. No demands arrived. They simply waited. This only increased the confusion. Some leaders suspected a trap. Others argued that humanity was attempting to intimidate the Empire into surrender. Nobody knew the truth. Finally, a transmission request arrived from the human fleet. It was directed to the highest levels of Imperial government. Minister Yuna agreed to receive it. Millions of citizens watched the broadcast as the signal connected. This time, Captain Hannah Choi was not alone. Beside her stood several other human officers and officials. Their calm expressions immediately attracted attention. They did not appear like conquerors preparing for war. They looked more like diplomats arriving for negotiations. Hannah began speaking. People of the Galactic Empire, humanity did not return to destroy your civilization. Across countless worlds, viewers listened carefully. For thousands of years, we remained beyond your borders. We watched. We learned. We hoped the mistakes of the past would remain buried. She paused briefly. Unfortunately, recent events forced our involvement. Yuna leaned forward. What exactly do you want? Hannah looked directly at the camera. We want the cycle to end. Confused expressions appeared throughout the council chamber. Hannah continued. The civilizations that came before your empire feared progress. They feared change. They feared what humanity might become. Because of that fear, they chose isolation and control instead of cooperation. The consequences shaped galactic history for thousands of years. Several historians exchanged nervous looks. Their recent discoveries supported her claims. Hannah continued speaking. We do not seek revenge for those actions. We seek something better. General Min Q frowned. Then why destroy our fleet? Hannah answered immediately. Because your government chose military force before understanding the situation. The demonstration at Varney's Reach prevented a larger conflict. The room became quiet. Nobody could deny the logic. If humanity truly possessed the power indicated by recent reports, then the destruction of one fleet may indeed have prevented something far worse. Then Hannah delivered the message that changed everything. Humanity is offering the Empire a choice. Every person watching paid close attention. You may continue following the path that has dominated galactic politics for thousands of years. Competition, expansion, fear, endless preparation for war. She paused. Or you may choose cooperation. Several officials looked skeptical. Others appeared curious. Hannah activated a display behind her. Images of distant human worlds appeared. Vast cities stretched across planets. Massive orbital structures surrounded stars. Advanced technology filled every image. Yet what caught everyone's attention was the diversity. Different species appeared living and working together. Some were familiar. Others had never been seen before. Hannah noticed their reactions. Humanity spent thousands of years exploring regions beyond known space. Along the way, we met many civilizations. We learned that cooperation creates strength far greater than domination. The images continued changing. Scientific projects, cultural exchanges, and peaceful colonies appeared one after another. For many viewers, the scenes challenged everything they believed about power and civilization. After the transmission ended, debates erupted across the empire. Some leaders dismissed humanity's offer as manipulation. Others believed it represented a genuine opportunity. Citizens discussed the issue everywhere. For the first time in generations, people questioned the direction of their society. Meanwhile, additional intelligence reports continued arriving. Human fleets maintained their positions without hostile actions. No attacks occurred. No invasions began. Trade routes remained open. Communications remained peaceful. Gradually, fear began mixing with curiosity. Several neighboring civilizations soon contacted humanity directly. Diplomatic discussions started. Scientific exchanges followed. Small but important changes began spreading through the galaxy. Back inside the imperial capital, Yuna Kim reviewed the latest updates. The situation remained tense, but one thing had become clear. Humanity was not acting like an enemy preparing for conquest. They were acting like a civilization trying to reshape the future. Whether the Empire accepted that future remained uncertain. As she considered the possibilities, a final report arrived from deep space. Long-range sensors had detected something extraordinary approaching from human territory. It was not a fleet. It was not a weapon. It was a diplomatic delegation carrying representatives from dozens of civilizations that had joined humanity over the centuries. The message accompanying the arrival was simple. Humanity was preparing to hold the largest diplomatic gathering in galactic history. The invitation had been sent to every major power. The Empire had been offered a seat at the table. For the first time since the crisis began, the future of the galaxy would not be decided by warships and weapons. It would be decided by choices. And the leaders of the Galactic Empire now faced the most important choice in their history. The weeks that followed became some of the most important in galactic history. The invitation sent by humanity spread across every major civilization, every independent alliance, and every corner of known space. For the first time in thousands of years, leaders who normally viewed one another as rivals prepared to gather in a single place. The Galactic Empire faced a difficult decision. Many officials still distrusted humanity. Others feared that rejecting the invitation could lead to disaster. Endless debates filled government halls. Military commanders argued with diplomats. Historians presented newly uncovered evidence about the ancient isolation of humanity. Citizens across the empire followed every development closely. Eventually, Minister Una Kim convinced the council to attend the gathering. "We have spent centuries believing we understood the galaxy," she told the council. "Recent events have proven otherwise. Refusing to listen would be a mistake." After days of discussion, the decision was approved. The Empire would send a delegation. News of the choice spread quickly, bringing relief to many worlds that feared another war. Several days later, a massive diplomatic convoy departed from the capital. Una led the delegation, accompanied by Admiral Dae Hyun Lee, Professor Narisong, General Min Kyu, and dozens of advisors. Their destination was a location beyond any region previously explored by Imperial vessels. Human navigational data guided them through routes hidden from ordinary star charts. As the convoy traveled deeper into unknown space, everyone aboard watched in amazement. Strange structures appeared near distant stars. Giant stations larger than planets floated peacefully in orbit. Advanced transportation networks connected systems separated by enormous distances. Everywhere they looked, signs of a civilization far beyond imperial expectations appeared. Yet the greatest surprise came when they arrived at the gathering site. The diplomatic center was unlike anything they had imagined. Built around a brilliant blue star, the structure stretched across millions of kilometers. Massive habitats rotated slowly around the central complex. Hundreds of ships from countless civilizations filled the surrounding space. Some belonged to species known by the Empire. Others represented cultures nobody had ever encountered before. The sight alone was enough to leave visitors speechless. As the Imperial delegation entered the station, they were welcomed by human officials. Captain Hannah Choi personally greeted them. "Welcome," she said with a friendly smile. "We're glad you came." Una studied the busy halls around her. Representatives from different species walked together, shared meals, exchanged ideas, and discussed projects. There was no visible military presence beyond basic security. The atmosphere felt more like a university than the center of a powerful civilization. "This is larger than anything we expected," Una admitted. Hannah nodded. Cooperation tends to grow over time. The gathering officially began the next day. Delegates from dozens of civilizations filled a massive chamber overlooking the nearby star. Throughout the event, human leaders explained the history that had remained hidden for thousands of years. Ancient records were shared openly. Evidence of the coalition that had isolated humanity was presented. Historians from multiple species confirmed the information independently. The truth was impossible to deny. Humanity had not disappeared because it was weak. Humanity had been pushed away because others feared what it might become. Yet what surprised many delegates most was humanity's response. Rather than seeking revenge, they had chosen a different path. During centuries of isolation, humans had focused on exploration, science, and cooperation. They had encountered new civilizations beyond known space and built partnerships instead of empires. Over time, those partnerships grew into a vast network of worlds connected by shared goals rather than military control. Professor Nari listened carefully as human researchers described technological breakthroughs that transformed entire regions of space. Medical advances eliminated diseases once considered unstoppable. Energy systems provided power on unimaginable scales. Environmental technologies restored damaged planets. Educational programs allowed knowledge to spread freely between civilizations. The more she learned, the more she realized that humanity's greatest achievement was not its technology. It was its willingness to share that technology. As discussions continued, many imperial delegates found themselves questioning long-held assumptions. For centuries, the empire had measured success through expansion, military strength, and political influence. Humanity measured success differently. They focused on stability, cooperation, and long-term progress. Neither approach had created a perfect society, but the differences were impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, back in imperial space, citizens watched updates from the gathering. Public opinion slowly began changing. Fear of humanity faded as more information became available. People saw images of human worlds, scientific projects, cultural exchanges, and peaceful partnerships. They heard stories from civilizations that had worked with humanity for generations. The image of humanity as a mysterious threat gradually disappeared. In its place emerged something unexpected: respect. Several days into the gathering, a major announcement was made. Human representatives proposed the creation of a new interstellar council open to every civilization willing to participate. Membership would not depend on military strength or territorial control. Instead, each member would have a voice in decisions affecting the wider galaxy. The proposal immediately sparked intense discussion. Some leaders supported the idea. Others worried about losing influence. Yet the concept gained momentum quickly. Too many civilizations had grown tired of endless rivalries and conflicts. The possibility of building something larger appealed to them. During one important session, Admiral Dae Hyun Lee requested permission to speak. The chamber became quiet as he stepped forward. Many remembered him as the commander whose fleet had been defeated at Varney's Reach. Dae Hyun looked around the room before beginning. When I first encountered humanity, I believed strength meant military power, he said. I believed control created security. He paused briefly. The events of recent months forced me to reconsider those beliefs. The room listened carefully. The human warship that defeated my fleet could have destroyed us completely. Instead, it delivered a warning. Looking back, I understand why. Humanity was trying to prevent a larger disaster. Several delegates nodded. Dae Hyun continued. Today I have seen worlds and civilizations working together on a scale I once thought impossible. I believe the future being offered here deserves serious consideration. His statement received widespread attention throughout the galaxy. Coming from a respected military leader, it carried significant weight. As negotiations continued, support for cooperation continued growing. Eventually, the Galactic Empire reached its decision. Minister Yuna announced it during the final days of the gathering. Standing before representatives from across the galaxy, she formally declared the Empire's intention to join the new council. The announcement was met with applause throughout the chamber. It marked a turning point not only for the Empire but for the galaxy as a whole. Over the following months, additional civilizations joined the initiative. Trade increased. Scientific cooperation expanded. Long-standing conflicts began moving toward peaceful resolutions. Progress remained slow in some areas, but the direction was clear. The galaxy was changing. Back aboard her vessel, Hannah Choi watched reports of the developments. Jun Kim stood nearby reviewing updates. Looks like they made the right choice, he said. Hannah smiled slightly. Most people do when they're given enough information. Mira Song entered carrying a new report. The first joint research project has already been approved. Hannah reviewed the details and nodded. Good. That's exactly why we came. Far away, on the imperial capital world, citizens looked toward the future with cautious optimism. The fear that once dominated public discussion had largely disappeared. Humanity was no longer viewed as a mysterious enemy lurking beyond the stars. Instead, they had become partners in shaping what came next. Minister Yuna often reflected on how much had changed in such a short time. It all began with a single unknown warship appearing in a forgotten corner of space. At the time, the Empire believed that vessel represented a threat. In reality, it represented an opportunity. Years later, historians would study the incident at Varney's Reach and identify it as one of the most important moments in galactic history. Not because a battle fleet had been erased, not because humanity revealed unimaginable technology, but because that encounter forced an entire civilization to question its assumptions. The Galactic Empire had panicked when its records failed to explain the mysterious human warship. What it eventually discovered was far more surprising than any weapon. Humanity's greatest strength was never the ability to destroy fleets. It was the ability to imagine a future larger than fear, larger than old rivalries, and larger than the mistakes of history. And as new generations looked toward the stars, that future finally began to take shape.